and the stated efforts by governments to deal with it. Professor David Walwyn is at the Graduate School of Technology Management at the University of Pretoria. Professor Walwyn, good afternoon to you, and thanks very much indeed for your time. We've become almost so used to corruption, or so used to claims of corruption, we can kind of forget how important this is. I mean, some people suggest dealing with the corruption at Eskom is the most important thing we must do as a country. Would you agree with that? In a way, could our future as a country be tied to this?
Absolutely, I would agree with that. I think getting on top of this electricity crisis is the absolute most essential thing that we could do right now. And we're just not making any progress. I mean, I've been tracking the statistics for nearly 4 years now. And in February last year, we were load shedding about 1.3% of demand. That's gone up to 15% in February, which is the worst month on record. So 10 times what we were a year ago. Who knows where we'll be in 1 year? So we absolutely have to get on top of this problem. And in the original article that I wrote a while ago, the point number one was this issue about crime and corruption at Eskom, and getting on top of the way in which the organized crime seems to have infiltrated into all the generating units and has effectively brought them to their knees, if I can use that statement. But I mean, listening to the preamble that was given there and the discussion about what's happening in Parliament, Parliament has never been a purveyor of truth, in my opinion, in the sense that this is where politics is played out. It's the playground of politics, and everyone is taking up a political stance as opposed to really trying to understand what the problems are and where the truth lies. So I've never found any solution from what happens in Parliament, but I do think that the point that was made right at the end is actually the most important point, and that is that ordinary South Africans are bearing the brunt of this load shedding. And it just seems to us that the politicians are not doing anything about it, not substantially dealing with the issues. And in my view, we should have the Minister of Electricity on the news every single night telling us how far he has progressed in solving this problem, and yet we never see him.
So that's the politicians. The Hawks, the SIU, the SA Police, their job, in the Constitution as I understand it, is to actually do proper investigations. Do you have any faith that they'll get to the bottom of what's going on?
They haven't indicated to us at all that they're making progress and that they are willing to get to the bottom of what's going on. And in a way that beggars belief. I mean, in a sense, I think they all understand what their job is, and that they are now at the center of this action and need to do something. But all we seem to get is a confusion of messages from the various agencies. And I personally have never heard the Minister of Police saying that he is clearing his desk of everything and he's going to focus exclusively now on corruption at Eskom power stations in order to get the energy availability factor up to where it should be. And that's exactly what we should be hearing, because this is a huge crisis for the country and it's driving away investors, it's driving people out of business, it's disrupting ordinary lives, it's having a massive impact. And I just don't see that somehow the law enforcement agencies have sufficient coordination and sufficient capability to give us any faith that they will ever get on top of this problem.
There's so many different elements to all of it. And in the middle of all of this, Eskom, of course, doesn't have, well, it's got plenty of vacancies, but it also doesn't have, there we are, it doesn't have a CEO at the moment, a group CEO. There's a short list, we understand, of 5 people. I think I know the identities of 2 of those people. I'm not certain. Do you know who would take the job right now to be chief executive of Eskom in the middle of all of this?
Yeah, a hospital pass. But it was a hospital pass, don't forget, 2 years ago or 3 years ago when Andre de Ruyter took the job. So it's not a favorite position for anyone who's trying to advance their careers. 2 of the names have been released, in fact. One is Vicky Padiachi, who actually comes from the energy sector. I can't remember the name of the other person, but it would be nice to know who the 5 names are, and they certainly are going to be bold people. The biggest thing about de Ruyter was, in fact, that he lost political support. I thought that he had a significant and important vision for the transition that was necessary in Eskom, and that there were 3 aspects to that. But he lost political support for what he needed to do, and that was really the kind of death knell for him in that position. So, I mean, it's certainly, he hasn't come out very cleanly in the last few months. This whole fiasco around the independent investigation, whether it was sanctioned by Eskom or not, and who paid for it, and what it achieved, and who it employed, all of those issues have not reflected well on Dorota at all. And that means that he is now a less credible witness in the sense of what was wrong in the utility. But it's going to be a difficult job, and let's hope whoever gets the job has political support and is able to do the things that are necessary.
Well, politics in some ways is at the heart of all of this because, as I understand it, the electricity minister, he's just been answering questions in the National Council of Provinces, still doesn't have formal powers. I mean, what does that tell us?
Yeah, I've heard that criticism. I'm not sure that that's a big issue right at this moment. The biggest issue is that minister needs to be showing leadership in the sense of how to get on top of this issue. And I mean, I sat through his 2-hour press briefing, and I can tell you it was a long labor. And at the end of it, I hadn't learned anything new. I already knew all the things that he recounted in great detail to us. But the one thing I did know is that the minister seems to know what's going on in the Eskom power stations now, after having done a 2-week walkabout. But it's one thing to have the information, it's another thing to have a strategy and a plan and to be implementing it, even if he doesn't have the power to do so. And I haven't seen any real evidence of that he has a plan, and that plan is going to work in the time that is available.
Professor David Walwyn, thank you, from the Graduate School of Technology Management at the University of Pretoria.